I fell for a stranger online, then realized he's my ex's father. Oh no. No, 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 crap! It's happened again, hasn't it? I've been stood up, abandoned, ditched, emotionally catfished. My phone glared like it was enjoying this. 7:43 p.m. He said 7:30. And now it was just me. A half-drunk glass of wine I couldn't pronounce, and the distant sound of my self-esteem flatlining. I knew it. I knew it. It was too good to be true. He was hot, smart, and used semicolons correctly. He was obviously a government plant designed to study the mating habits of chronically disappointed gay men. I pulled my phone up for the 5th time in 2 minutes and resisted the urge to throw it into the nearest artisanal candle. Was I being dramatic? Yes. Was I spiraling? Also yes. Was I seconds away from texting my therapist, "You up," even though she's on vacation in Bhutan? You bet your ass I was. I'd already mentally drafted the breakup text I'd sent Miles, even though we weren't technically dating. Hey, no worries if you lost interest or died. Just would have been cool to know. Take care, XX. Just as I was about to collect what remained of my pride and make a dramatic exit that might have involved tripping over a bar stool. Hey, sorry I'm late. And there he was, Miles, tall, disheveled in a sexy, my life is together but I still own flannel sheets kind of way. He was slightly out of breath, like he'd jogged here from a novel, and smiling a warm smile that made something inside me give up the will to panic. I blinked at him. "You're here," I squeaked, before my brain could relay the play it cool memo. He smiled. "I really didn't mean to keep you waiting. The tube was a mess. Then I got turned around and my whole trip here just span out of control. You get the picture, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, the picture where I'm slowly descending into an anxious breakdown in the middle of a wine bar." That made him laugh. "I deserve that," he said, pulling out the chair across from me. "But I'm glad you stayed." Me too. Though I wasn't sure how I was still upright, considering my insides had completely liquefied. "You look good," he said, his eyes doing that quick once-over that somehow didn't feel sleazy, just observant. "Better than your pictures, actually. I was starting to worry you were a very charming bot." "Oh, I am," I deadpanned. I was coded by gay engineers with commitment issues. His smile widened, and I immediately felt a little steadier. Just being near him, he had that kind of presence. Calm, focused, like nothing was in a rush. "You're not so bad yourself," I added, folding my hands to keep from fidgeting. "I thought maybe I'd show up and find out you were a man named Stan using stock photos of a literature professor." "Well," he said, settling into his seat, "lucky for both of us, I actually am a literature professor. On sabbatical. No Stans involved." He was real. Not just pixels or late-night messages or quiet jokes sent in the dark. Miles existed. And that scared the hell out of me. We ordered. Him, something simple. Me, something I pretended to understand but mostly picked because the name sounded vaguely French and impressive. "So," he said after the waiter left, "what's it like meeting me in the flesh?" I exhaled. "Honestly, terrifying." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "Terrifying?" "In a good way, like roller coaster terrifying, not the IRS is cooling terrifying." He chuckled again. I was really starting to like that sound. "Fair enough," he said. "It's strange, isn't it? Talking to someone every night for weeks, getting used to their voice in your head, and then suddenly they're sitting across from you, holding a menu." "I keep waiting to wake up back in bed with my phone on my chest and a dead leg," I admitted. "You're not dreaming?" "Don't say things like that," I thought. My chest was already doing that warm, fluttery thing that usually came right before I got hurt. The food eventually came, the wine settled, and slowly the nervous tension bled out of me. We talked about work, his sabbatical, my freelance hellscape. He asked questions, good ones, listened, laughed when I told him about the client who wanted a logo that says eco-friendly, but also, sexy. You actually did it, though? He laughed. Obviously. It's currently being printed on 4,000 biodegradable tote bags. I made him laugh again. By dessert, we weren't strangers anymore. We were something closer. And as the check came and the lights dimmed just a bit more, I couldn't help but think, whatever this is, I wanted more of it. 1 week later. Some people fall in love like a switch flipping on. Ours was more like a soft glow that brightened little by little, until one day I looked up and realized the room was full of light. It started with a second date, then a third, then I stopped counting because it didn't feel like dating anymore. It felt like building something. Carefully, quietly, like stacking rocks in a river. There were long walks through the city, our hands never quite touching, but always close enough to feel the gravity. There were slow mornings with takeout coffee and the kind of conversations that made time feel like a rumor. And nights. God, the nights. We'd talk on the phone until sleep was more suggestion than inevitability. He had this way of listening that made even my throwaway thoughts feel like poetry. I told him about my family, how my mum still texts in all caps like she's being held hostage, and how my dad only calls when Mercury's in retrograde or someone dies. He told me about the quiet house he grew up in with his single mother, how he'd learned to fold himself smaller so she and his siblings could breathe easier. There was pain in both of us, different shapes, same root. But with him, it felt okay to share it, like opening a window, not ripping out a wall. One night, curled up under a too-thin blanket and tethered to the charger like a lifeline, I asked, "What made you reach out to me? On the app, I mean." There was a pause on the line, then his voice, gentle. "You looked like someone who sees the world clearly, even when it hurts." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. I just let the quiet settle between us, warm and full. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes he'd go quiet for a day, and I'd spiral, still learning that silence from him didn't mean the same thing it had with Tyler. Sometimes I'd joke too sharply, just to see if he'd flinch. He never did. And slowly, I started to trust it. Trust him. I'd been so sure real connection was for other people, people with less baggage, straighter teeth, better luck. But here was Miles, steady, present, mine. 4 days later. It started with a gas leak. Not, metaphorically, though God knows I've dated men whose emotional volatility counted as hazardous. No, this was a real, actual gas leak. One moment I was triple-checking my outfit for our dinner reservation at a cute little place that had, and I quote, handwritten menus and too many plants. The next, text from Miles. Restaurants closed. Some issue in the kitchen. Gas leak. You okay with a change of plans? Which is how I found myself currently speed-walking through a quiet, tree-lined street toward his apartment. Heart pounding, palms sweating, and stomach flipping like it was auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. Because tonight, I wasn't meeting him in a bar, or a park, or some neutral public location where escape was possible and witnesses were plentiful. Tonight, I was going to his place, his home, that sacred, terrifying space where people kept their childhood trauma in bookshelves and pretend they don't snore. He offered to cook, said it shyly, like it was a secret he wasn't used to sharing. I said yes immediately, because, obviously, And now, of course, I was spiraling. What if his apartment was weirdly spotless and made me feel like a raccoon in a restoration hardware catalogue? What if he had a bidet and I didn't know how to use it and accidentally sprayed the cat? Worse, what if it was too perfect? The kind of place that said, "I've done this before with someone better." I paused outside his door and inhaled. It smelled like pine, city air, and possibly my own fear. I knocked. A beat. Then footsteps. Then the door opened. And there he was, wearing a faded blue Henley and socks with tiny British flags on them. Hair slightly messy, smile soft. "Hey," he said, like he hadn't just casually invited me into the most intimate version of his life. "Come in." His apartment was warm. Not in a fake, staged way, in a lived-in way. There were books everywhere, some stacked, some shelved, some opened with pages splayed like they'd been interrupted mid-thought. A half-full mug sat on the windowsill beside a trailing ivy plant that looked healthier than I've ever felt. The lighting was low, soft, golden. "You live like a man who's actually read A Movable Feast," I said, stepping aside. He laughed. "You live like a man who can quote Hemingway before dinner. We're even." I towed off my shoes, suddenly too aware of the fraying hem on my jeans and the tiny wine stain on my sweater that I thought I'd gotten out. I hadn't. But Miles didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't seem to care. There was jazz playing low from a speaker on the bookshelf and a bottle of wine breathing on the counter. "This is really nice," I said, because holy shit, it was. He smiled at me over his shoulder. "I don't usually do this." "Cook?" He turned back, a slight tilt to his head. "Have people over?" "Oh, okay. That sound you hear? Just the final remnants of my emotional walls crumbling." "Well, I'm honored to be your first," I said, then immediately cringed. "Not like that. I didn't mean—" He chuckled. "Relax. I know what you meant." The nerves didn't disappear exactly, but they quieted. He poured us wine. We talked while he chopped garlic and told me about his disastrous attempt to make risotto in grad school. I told him about the time I nearly poisoned myself, trying to bake with almond extract I thought was vanilla. He moved around the kitchen like he'd done it 1,000 times, but still smiled every time I caught his eye. Like this, me, here, was still new, still exciting. And God, I wanted to kiss him, but I didn't. Not yet. I let it simmer, just like the sauce on the stove. 1 hour later. Dinner was suspiciously good, like either Miles had a secret past as a private chef, or he was trying to seduce me with carbs, which, frankly, would work either way. We sat close, closer than we had to, on his old velvet couch. Wine glasses cradled between us. The air buzzed with something heavy and humming. Jazz had given way to something softer now. Maybe Nina Simone. Maybe the wine. I was a little too drunk on him to tell. He turned toward me, that steady gaze lingering a second too long on my mouth. "You've got something," he said softly, gesturing toward my lip. I licked it automatically. "Got it?" "No," he murmured, then leaned in and kissed me. It was slow at first, exploratory, but deep, intentional, like he wanted to know what every part of me tasted like. I kissed him back, hands gripping his shirt, pulling him closer before my brain could send up a single red flag. He groaned low in his throat, one hand slipping up my jaw, the other already tugging at the hem of my sweater, like a man who knew exactly what he wanted. And Jesus, he felt good. Hot breath, calloused hands, his mouth against my neck, murmuring something I couldn't hear over the sound of my own pulse. "Tell me if this is too fast," he whispered, against my skin. I didn't tell him anything. I just kissed him harder. The room felt like it was tilting, time blurring, clothes becoming a rumor. I tugged him closer, straddling his lap, my fingers in his hair. Ring. The shrill, jarring sound of a landline split the moment like glass underfoot. Miles exhaled a breath he'd been holding and rested his forehead against mine, both of us panting. "Sorry," he said, voice rough and breathless. "That's probably my department chair. I need to take it." "Of course," I managed, heart still pounding in places I didn't know had a pulse. He gently eased me off his lap and stood, running a hand through his hair with a sheepish look. "Bathroom's down the hall, second door on the left. I'll be 2 minutes. Don't vanish on me." I gave a breathless chuckle and nodded, but the second he disappeared down the hallway with the phone, I stumbled up and headed toward the bathroom, mostly to collect myself. My legs still felt like jellyfish. My mouth was swollen. I could still feel the pressure of his palms against my waist like phantom heat. As I walked, the hallway light caught a photo on the wall. I almost didn't look. Almost. But something about the frame, familiar, maybe, caught my eye. I turned and froze. A boy, teenaged, tall, gangly, with a mild mess of styled dark hair and eyes like lit gasoline. Tyler. No. No, 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 no! I leaned in closer, like somehow proximity might make it less real. It didn't. It was Tyler, a little younger, smirking beside a man with his hand on his shoulder, a man I now realized had the same steel blue eyes and the same sharp jawline that had just been pressed against my cheek. My blood iced, the floor wobbled, my chest tightened, sharp and sudden. A full-blown panic attack started clawing its way up my throat. Oh God. Oh God. I had been kissing my ex's father. I stumbled back from the photo, breath coming in short, ragged bursts. The air felt too thick, the walls too close. I heard Miles's voice drifting from the other room, low and distracted, still on the phone. I couldn't let him see me like this, couldn't let the words come out, couldn't stand there and explain that the man he'd just kissed, almost undressed, used to sleep with his son. I bolted, out the hallway, past the bookshelf, through the door. "Noah?" I heard him call out, once, then again. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. 3 days later. It had been 3 days. 3 days of ignoring texts, 14 missed calls, 1 voicemail I listened to half a dozen times, then deleted out of sheer cowardice. I didn't know what to say to him. What could I say? Hey, remember when things were perfect and soft and potentially real? Turns out I have a history with your son. And not just like, we went to the same high school history, like, I've seen him naked and cried on his chest history. Yeah, that. So instead, I did what I do best. I ran. I buried myself in work. I reorganized my closet. I rewatched The West Wing from the beginning like Sorkinian dialogue could somehow stitch my panic together, until fate, or cruel cosmic timing, decided to drop-kick me back into reality, in the form of the produce section at the local supermarket. There I was, standing in front of the avocados like a man who'd forgotten how to choose one, lightly squeezing, putting them back, repeating like it was a sacrament, when I heard his voice. "Noah?" I froze. No. Nope, absolutely not. I turned around, and there he was, Miles, looking devastating in jeans and a dark tee, hair slightly wind-mussed, and holding a bundle of kale like he'd personally grown it in his backyard. Of course, I considered diving into the bin of cucumbers. Instead, I stood there like a startled deer who had almost maybe cried in the freezer aisle last night. "Hey," I said, voice cracking on a note I didn't authorize. "Hi, wow, kale?" Miles raised an eyebrow. "Kale?" I panicked. A beat of silence. He looked at me like he didn't know whether to hug me or shake me. "I've been trying to reach you," he said softly. "I know." I picked up an avocado, dropped it, picked it up again. "I didn't know what to say," I blurted. "You could have said anything. Yeah, well, I was kind of busy having a minor psychological breakdown. His mouth twitched, like he wasn't sure if it was safe to laugh yet. I sighed. Listen, I saw the photo in your hallway. Tyler, Miles's face stilled. I didn't know what to do. I rushed on. I freaked out. I thought maybe this whole thing was some twisted setup, like Tyler sent you to me as a joke or some revenge fantasy, and I just... Noah, he cut in, voice sharp enough to make me stop babbling. That boy in the photo is my son, Tyler, but I had no idea you two knew each other. Like that, or at all. We've been estranged for years. I stared at him. He took a breath, stepped closer. We haven't spoken in a long time. Not really, not since he was 14. Things ended badly between I and my family. My throat tightened. I didn't recognize him in you. You never mentioned his name. Why would I assume... No, I know, I said quickly, chest aching with the weight of it. I didn't know how to process it. You are the first person I felt safe with in a long time, and then suddenly it felt like the whole thing cracked in half. Miles looked at me, really looked. That patient, soul-searching stare. He did like he was trying to read the fine print of my heart. Noah, I didn't lie to you, and I wasn't using you. What we have, was real. Still is, if you'll let it be. I bit my lip. A passing shopper dropped a lemon. It rolled between us, dramatically, like the universe was trying to cut the tension with slapstick. I'm sorry, I said finally, for disappearing, for assuming the worst, for ghosting you over... produce. He smiled softly. We're still in it, then? I looked down at the avocado in my hand, squeezed it. It gave just a little. Perfect. I looked back at him. Yeah, I whispered. I think we are. Later that evening, we met at the park. Miles texted that he'd grab coffee from the little stand near the pond. I remember you take it no sugar, no milk, because you're a monster. And that alone made me forgive him on the spot. I found him on one of the old wooden benches under a flickering lamp-post. Coffees in hand, scarf looped around his neck like a man genetically incapable of being underdressed. He handed me a cup without a word, and I took it, cradling the warmth like it could anchor me. We sat in silence for a beat, maybe two. Then I cleared my throat. So, your son. Miles gave a tired, rueful chuckle. Yeah, my son. I dated him for 2 years. I said, mostly to the coffee. And I left when he threw my sketchbook into the street because I wouldn't let him read my texts. Miles blinked. That sounds very much like Tyler. He told me he hated his dad. He went still. I glanced up. You. Miles gave a quiet nod. He does. Did. We both looked out over the pond. Ducks glided along the dark surface like they had no idea they were background extras in a relationship drama. Do you want to talk about it? I asked. You and him? He was quiet for a long time. Then he sipped his coffee and exhaled. I wasn't a great father, Noah. I wasn't even a decent one, most of the time. I left his mum when he was 14. Spent years buried in research trips and lectures. I thought providing for him was enough. I didn't show up, not when it mattered. His voice was calm, factual, like he'd rehearsed this before, maybe for himself. When I finally did try to reconnect, he wouldn't have it. I pushed. He pushed harder. Eventually, we stopped pretending. That's a lot. He nodded. I'm not proud of any of it. We sat in the stillness of that confession. And now? I asked quietly. Now? He said, turning toward me. I've met someone I care about, and it's complicated, but that doesn't make it any less real. I looked at him, the lines around his eyes, the steadiness of his hands, the soft ache in his words. I don't know what the hell we're doing, I admitted. This whole thing feels like a fever dream with really good kissing and psychological landmines. Miles smiled. I'm okay with figuring it out as we go. I raised my cup. To figuring it out. He tapped his against mine. One emotionally fraught coffee at a time. 3 months later. 3 months. That's how long it took for things to settle into something that felt dangerously close to a new normal. After the hallway photo, after the supermarket confession, after the shaky park bench honesty, Miles and I kept showing up, for each other, for the mess of it all. There were still ghosts, sure. There were silences that needed translating and mornings where I wasn't sure if I should reach for him or for my own armor first. But it was working. We'd slipped into a rhythm. Brunches, sleepovers, long talks, slow mornings, hands brushing under cafe tables. There was laughter again, art again, hope again. Until one afternoon, Tyler showed up at my door. I opened it without checking the peephole. Rookie mistake. There he stood, leaning on the frame like a man posing for a magazine cover, themed self-destruction with a side of smug. Leather jacket slung over his shoulder, hair messily perfect, smile sharp enough to nick bone. Well, well, he drawled. You've been playing hard to get, huh? My stomach dropped. Tyler, what the hell are you doing here? He pushed past me like he still had the right. Had to see for myself what kind of ghosting masterpiece you were painting this time. Seeing as you moved all the way out to a brand new town without telling me? 1 minute we're sharing memories, in the next, radio silence. You hiding someone in here? Sharing memories? What are you, amnesiac? How the hell did you even find me? You know what? Don't answer, I snapped, following him into the living room. Just get the hell out. You always did get mean when you were guilty. I opened my mouth to reply, and then the knock came. Another one, firm, measured. I didn't have to look to know. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Expecting someone? I swallowed. Don't. I moved to the door, but Tyler beat me to it, yanking it open. Miles stood there, holding takeout, wearing that soft charcoal sweater I liked because it made his eyes look even more unfairly blue. Tyler blinked. His smirk faltered. Then he laughed. Oh my God, he said. You've got to be kidding me. Miles, calmly as ever, gave a small nod. Hello, Tyler. Tyler's entire body shifted, like a wire being pulled taut. His hand clenched the doorknob. What the fuck are you doing here? I came to see Noah. You followed me? Miles's brow furrowed. No, I didn't even know you'd be here. Well, congratulations, Dad, Tyler sneered. You've hit a new low. First you ditched me, now you're screwing your way into the one person I actually cared about. Stop, I said, too quietly. No one heard me. You abandon your family and come crawling back through his bedroom window? Tyler's voice cracked, hysteria riding just beneath it. Miles stepped forward. I didn't know Noah was connected to you when we met. I didn't know until after, and we've been careful. We didn't mean for any of this. Oh, fuck off with your lectures, Tyler spat. I've had enough of your careful. He turned to me then, eyes wild, betrayal painted across his face like war paint. And you? Jesus, Noah, my father, what the hell is wrong with you? I stared at him, throat tight, mind racing. You treated me like garbage, I said. You broke things in me. I'm still gluing back together. I owed you nothing. You owed me not sleeping with my goddamn father. I didn't plan this, Tyler. Did you love him when you were still in my bed? That one hit low, and he knew it. Tyler, enough, Miles said, voice finally hardening. This isn't helping anyone. Oh, don't pretend you're suddenly a therapist. You're just another middle-aged cliché trying to bang his way into relevance. Miles flinched, jaw tightening. The room crackled with silence. Then, slowly, Miles put the takeout down on the console table. "I can't do this right now," he said, voice raw around the edges. "Not like this." He looked at me once, just once, and then turned, walked out the door, and shut it softly behind him. I stood in the wreckage of it all, breathing hard, staring at Tyler like he'd detonated something that could never be unblown up. 2 days later. 2 days. That's how long it had been since Tyler lit a match and walked out grinning, leaving everything in ashes. That night, I'd texted Miles, called once. He replied with 5 words. "I need a little time." I gave it to him. Sort of. I stared at my phone so hard it probably considered filing a restraining order, but I didn't push. Until now. I stood outside his apartment, heart stammering like it knew something I didn't. When the door opened, Miles looked like he hadn't slept much. Sweater wrinkled, hair slightly tousled, eyes cautious. But he let me in. We sat, quiet, still. Then, finally, he spoke. "She didn't want me around. His mum, after the divorce," his voice was low but steady, "said I was unstable, said he'd be better off without me." I stayed quiet, let him breathe it out. "I fought, for a while. Then, I didn't anymore. She made it so hard, and by the time I tried again, Tyler was angry, rightfully so." He rubbed a hand over his jaw. "I told myself he was better off, that I'd only mess him up more, so I stayed away. But the guilt?" His voice cracked, just slightly. "That part doesn't fade." I reached over, fingers grazing his. "You made mistakes," I said. "But you didn't choose to disappear. You were pushed out, and you're not doing anyone any favors by punishing yourself forever." He looked at me then, really looked, like maybe he wanted to believe me. "I don't know how to fix any of this." "You don't have to fix all of it," I said. "Just don't run from the part that's real." He didn't speak, but he didn't pull his hand away either. And in that small, aching silence, we both decided to stay. That weekend. By Saturday, my stomach was in knots, and caffeine. The heart-to-heart with Miles hadn't fixed things. If anything, it made them worse. He'd floated the word space, casually, like it wasn't a bomb. A break, a pause. It made the floor tilt under me. So, naturally, I did what any emotional, well-adjusted adult would do. I set a trap. Okay, a dinner. But with Tyler as the surprise guest, it might as well have been a landmine with candles. Getting Miles there was simple. A little coaxing, a text about dinner. He said yes. Tyler, on the other hand, needed bait, so I embellished. I know I screwed up. I probably can't fix it, but let me at least try. I thought it might have been too much, but Tyler, being Tyler, texted back with pure venom. 1,000 dinners won't change a damn thing. But sure, I'll come watch you trip over yourself. Charming, as always. So with both of them locked in, I booked a restaurant. Upscale, intimate, classy enough to discourage yelling, tight enough to prevent an escape. Then one final message. Please, just show up. And somehow, they did. Miles arrived first. He looked tired but polished, like he'd tried. His sweater was navy, his eyes were wary. Then Tyler strutted in, took one look at the table, and froze. "Oh, you absolute psychopath," he muttered, eyes flickering from me to Miles. "Seriously?" "Just sit," I said. "One meal, that's all I'm asking." Tyler looked like he might bolt, or throw a bread plate, but he slid into the chair across from Miles with all the grace of a snake, coiling before it strikes. The tension? Palpable. Miles gave a small nod. "Tyler?" "Dad?" The word was acidic. "Still playing house?" "Still playing victim?" Miles countered, calm but tight. "Boys," I said, tone light but sharp. "Restaurant. Forks, porcelain. Let's not go viral tonight." They lapsed into silence while the waiter poured wine with the theatrical flair of a man deeply aware he was not paid enough for this. I sipped mine too fast. My pulse tap-danced behind my eyes. Dinner arrived. No one ate. Finally, Miles set down his utensils and stood. "I wasn't a perfect father," he said quietly but clearly. "But I never wanted to leave. I never wanted to disappear. Your mother made that choice for both of us, and by the time I found a way back, you'd already been taught to hate me." Tyler scoffed. "And you just accepted that? Walked off like I was some bad investment?" "I tried, Tyler," Miles snapped. "You slammed the door every time, and I let you, because I thought maybe you needed someone to blame more than you needed me. But I won't apologize for trying to be happy now." Tyler's face twisted. "With him?" Miles turned to me briefly. "I've been thinking about stepping away, for your sake, to give you space to heal." I went still. "But I realized something," he said, turning back to Tyler. "You've made your anger everyone's cage. I've lived inside it. So has Noah, and maybe it's time to stop." He exhaled, voice steadier now. "If you can't even meet me halfway, Tyler, then maybe it's better we stayed estranged." Silence. A hot, ringing silence. Then Tyler stood. He looked between us, jaw tight, eyes bright with something too messy to name. "Screw this," he said. "You two deserve each other." He walked out without another word. The door swung shut behind him. Miles stayed standing for a long moment. Then slowly, he sat back down, rubbed a hand across his face. I watched him. This man I'd let in against my better judgment. This man who broke, but didn't run. "You still hungry?" I asked, voice quiet. His lips curved, barely. "No, but I'm staying." I nodded, clinking my glass softly against his. We sat there, two tired hearts in two nice clothes, not quite victorious, not quite whole, but still here, still choosing. Conclusion. Thankfully, that dinner was the last I'd heard from Tyler. No texts, no dramatic exits, just silence. It took time, but Miles rose above it. He stopped carrying the guilt, stopped chasing after someone who didn't want to be found. And us? We kept showing up. By the end of the year, we were talking about moving in together, sharing space and groceries and morning routines. Miles even mentioned going back to teaching, ending the sabbatical, facing forward again. The end. Would you stick around if you found out the person you're with is a relative of your ex? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.